Nagari greeted his mother with a good morning, picked up his lunch, and left for school. However, once at school, he became the target of severe bullying. A group of students surrounded him, drew a target on his stomach, and began kicking him without mercy. The ones responsible were 4 students. The fat one was named Ajiki. The girl was Shikimi. The third was Kinugawa, and the last one was Kawase. The beating was so intense that Nagari lost control and wet himself. The urine spread and touched Kinugawa's shoes. In a rage, Kinugawa kicked him even harder and shouted at him, demanding to know if he understood how expensive those shoes were. At that moment, their leader, Okaya, arrived. He told Kinugawa that he had already warned him not to hit Nagari's face. Kinugawa immediately backed off and apologized. But Okaya wasn't done. He crushed Nagari's lunchbox and filled it with cockroaches and other insects. When Nagari refused to eat it, Okaya forcefully shoved the lunch into his mouth. They were all targeting him for a single reason. Okaya couldn't stand the look in Nagari's eyes, which he described as rebellious. After school, Nagari quietly returned home. His mother had prepared a small party and a cake as it was his 14th birthday. When Maria saw the wound on his face, she gently asked what happened. He just smiled and replied that he had gotten trapped at school. Maria, who had nursing experience, carefully treated his injury and applied a bandage. Later that night, she called Nagari's father and told him about her concern that their son was being bullied. But his father dismissed her worry, calling her overprotective, and ended the call. Lying in bed and playing games, Nagari suddenly received a disturbing video. It showed his mother involved in an affair. He immediately realized it was fake because the voice didn't match his mother's. Right after that, he received a message from Kawase asking him to come to the observatory. Nagari made his way to the observatory on the mountain where the whole group was already gathered. They started insulting his mother, calling her names like expired Andy. Okaya then gave him an ultimatum. If he didn't want the fake video of his mother to be spread, he had to jump from the mountain without hesitation. And in order to protect his mother's dignity, Nagari jumped. At the same time, Maria had been tracking her son through a phone app and arrived near the mountain. Suddenly, she saw her son lying on the road, his legs completely broken. She ran toward him, but before she could help, a truck ran over him, killing him instantly. Maria collapsed to the ground, holding what was left of her son, crying in grief. The bullies, terrified by what happened, quickly ran away to avoid being arrested. Back at home, Maria lay in bed, broken by the tragedy. When Nagari's father apologized for not protecting their son, she rejected his apology and told him they were supposed to be parents. Days later, Maria found Nagari's diary. Inside, it was every detail of what he had suffered. She also discovered his laptop where he had saved all the evidence. As she went through everything, she came to a terrifying realization. The ones who had done this were no longer human. They were demons in need of judgment. 2 years passed, and Maria reappeared at the same school, not as a parent, but as the school nurse. One day, Okaya walked into the infirmary holding a poster that said, "No bullying." Maria held her emotions back and told him he was very admirable. Having killed her old self, she couldn't afford to make a single mistake. On the school grounds, Kawase was seen bullying a girl named Yajima. He showed her a secret video of her changing clothes and forced her to bring him 30,000 yen every month. Maria approached them and asked what was going on. Kawase quickly made up a lie, saying Yajima had puked and he was helping her. Before walking away, he threatened Yajima not to tell anyone or he'd release her video. Later, Kawase bragged to his friends about almost being caught by the nurse. His friends warned him that if they ever got exposed, they'd kill him. Kawase reassured them, saying no one had found out what really happened to Nagari 2 years ago. Suddenly, Okaya appeared behind him and asked if he had mentioned Nagari's name. He told Kawase to never speak that name again, explaining how much he had hated his rebellious eyes. In an attempt to please Okaya, Kawase pulled out some money to offer him. Okaya didn't even look at it and walked away. Standing there, Kawase remembered Nagari's words that Okaya didn't actually care about him. Now, those words were starting to feel true. Back at home, Kawase received 2 terrifying videos. One showed him bullying Nagari, something he thought was deleted years ago. The other was a personal and humiliating clip of himself. A message followed demanding 3 million yen. It was sent by Maria. Still stressed, Kawase saw Yajima walking nearby and angrily approached her. He demanded satisfaction, claiming he was irritated. Yajima ignored him and tried to escape. Since she never acted like this before, Kawase believed she had sent the videos. He dragged her away and began torturing her, trying to force the truth out. Even though she repeatedly denied any involvement, he kept going and tried to drown her. At that moment, Maria entered and disappeared with him in an instant. Kawase woke up in a tank with his hand chained. Water started pouring into the tank. Maria stood before him and welcomed him calmly. Kawase thought it was some kind of prank or set up by someone else. But when he saw Maria's expression, he realized it was real. She told him he was being punished for stealing something precious from her. Now she would steal his oxygen. Kawase assumed it was revenge for Yajima and claimed he was only playing. Maria told him to shut up and gave him a final chance. If he could enter the greatest sin he had ever committed, he could escape. Kawase searched through his memories and decided to enter the date of Nagari's death. But he didn't even remember when they killed him. Instead of feeling regret, he cursed Nagari for not dying on a holiday. The water in the tank kept rising. With no other choice, he had to cut off his hand using a blade. At first he refused, but desperation took over. He pressed the blade into his skin and began slicing. When he reached the bone, the knife got stuck. It wasn't sharp enough. Kawase struggled but couldn't go through with it. Eventually, he drowned. Maria pulled his lifeless body from the tank and hugged it tightly. She whispered that the greatest sin he had ever committed was simply being born. Days later, Okaya tried calling Kawase but received no answer. Then, Nagari's father, Taiichiro, who worked as a detective, arrived at the school. He stood in front of Okaya to begin an investigation into Kawase's disappearance. Okaya warmly greeted Taiichiro, speaking with respect and friendliness. He even requested Taiichiro to help find Kawase as quickly as possible. During their conversation, Taiichiro mentioned his son Nagari, reminding Okaya that they used to be classmates. Okaya's expression instantly shifted and he put on a sad face as he called Nagari's death a tragic accident. Taiichiro smiled gently, saying it brought him comfort that the student still remembered his son. He also shared that ever since Maria divorced him, he had never spoken about their son with anyone. Meanwhile, Kinugawa and the others were at a restaurant. He grew annoyed seeing how the others behaved as if everything was normal. So, he brought up Kawase's sudden disappearance. But Shikimi dismissed his concern, saying she didn't care, and told Kinugawa to stop thinking about it. This angered Kinugawa. He insisted that Kawase was still their friend. Shikimi rolled her eyes, told him not to get emotional, and left, saying she had plans to go fishing. Later, Shikimi was seen in a hotel room with an adult man. Before anything could happen, another man barged in, accusing the adult of trying to sleep with a minor. It became clear that Shikimi had set the situation up intentionally for money. While showering afterward, her thoughts drifted to Okaya. At school, Kawase's homeroom teacher approached Maria asking about his whereabouts. Maria calmly replied that she didn't know anything, but as the teacher turned to leave, she brought up a matter concerning Shikimi, who was one of his students. Shortly after, Shikimi came storming toward Kinugawa and the fat student. Furious, she accused them of revealing her side job. Maria had told the teacher about Shikimi's actions, but she assumed Kinugawa and the fat one were the ones who had snitched. She was about to attack Kinugawa when he grabbed her leg and demanded she stop accusing her own friends. Unbeknownst to them, Maria stood behind the door, silently, watching everything unfold. Her investigation was over. It was now time to act. A while ago, Nagari had been falsely accused of stealing Shikimi's gym clothes after they were found in his bag. Despite his desperate denial, no one had believed him. That incident had completely destroyed his image in the class. Maria had discovered all of this in Nagari's notes. Now Shikimi had become her next target. The following day, Okaya gathered everyone and revealed that Kawase had been missing for 3 weeks. Despite the police looking into it, there were no leads. Some believed he had gone on a trip or met with an accident. But Okaya suspected something darker. He might have been murdered. He warned them to stay alert as it seemed like someone was targeting them. Later in class, Shikimi searched her bag and realized her gym clothes were missing. When she questioned her classmates, Kinugawa snapped at her, telling her to shut up. In the heat of their argument, she kicked his bag. When it spilled open, her missing gym clothes fell out. Enraged, Shikimi confronted Kinugawa. He fired back, yelling that she was framing him just like she did with Nagari. Everyone in the classroom heard the outburst. Panicking, Shikimi laughed it off, claiming it was just an act. To shift attention, she repeated her accusation and said Kinugawa stole her clothes during her chemistry class. Kinugawa responded that he had been in the toilet, but she refused to believe him. At that moment, Maria entered the classroom and calmly stated that Kinugawa had been with her during that time. She asked Shikimi to explain herself. Kinugawa backed her up, saying Maria had called him in for a consultation before class. Shikimi realized she was losing control of the situation. To divert blame, she pointed fingers at a random boy who was just reading manga. But it was too late. No one believed her anymore. The class murmured about Nagari and mocked Shikimi, saying no one would want her gym clothes anyway. Maria stepped in and told everyone to stop, reminding them there was no evidence. She warned Shikimi that if she kept accusing others, she would soon be left completely alone. But the damage was done. Everyone looked at her with cold eyes. Shikimi shoved Maria aside and stormed out, insisting she wasn't a loner. Maria followed and caught up to her, softly, saying, "You're such a pitiful child, aren't you?" That single sentence froze Shikimi. It turns out Maria had planted her gym clothes in Kinugawa's bag after calling him into a meeting. Everything was part of her plan, and it worked perfectly. Later, Shikimi sat in a car with a man, determined to take revenge on Maria. That night, as Maria headed home, a group of men ambushed her. She tried to escape but got caught. At home, Shikimi waited, expecting news of Maria's defeat. Instead, the door opened and Maria entered with icy eyes. The next thing Shikimi knew, she was tied up and hanging over a large pit. It was time for her judgment. Maria explained how she dealt with the attackers, tossed two of them, and seduced the ringleader into a trap from him. She also learned everything about Shikimi's plan. Maria told her that she and Kawase had no awareness of the pain they had caused. Hearing Kawase's name, Shikimi finally understood why he vanished. Now it was her turn. A candle slowly burned the rope she was hanging from. Below her, the pit was filled with swarming insects. But Maria gave her one chance. She could send a message to one person without revealing her situation. At first, Shikimi felt relieved until she saw the phone had no SIM card. Maria showed her a box full of blades and said the SIM had accidentally fallen in. Now Shikimi had to use her mouth to search for it. She tried moving the cutters with her face, but it got cut right away. Tears filled her eyes as she cried, asking why this was happening. Maria told her to stop pretending to be a victim. She explained that Shikimi's suffering was nothing but the outcome of her own cruelty. Suddenly, Shikimi recalled how she forced Nagari to search for his keys in the mailbox with his mouth. And now she knew Maria was Nagari's mother. Shikimi realized Maria's final goal, Okaya. Despite her own fear of pain, she plunged her face into the box, frantically searching for the SIM. Her feelings for Okaya were so strong that she didn't care about herself anymore. All that mattered was warning him. Eventually, she found the SIM, but her face and mouth were covered in cuts. When Maria allowed her to choose someone to message, she picked Okaya. But when she opened their chat, she saw a harsh truth. She was the only one who ever tried talking to him. He had never cared. Still, she asked Maria to send the message. "If you like me, come to this place immediately." She wanted to send that message. However, she doesn't have courage and messaged the guy who she has sent before to attack Maria. In the message, she told him she had a new target who could get the money, but the man rejected her and cursed her in response. It turned out that during their time at the hotel, Maria had revealed everything to him. How sure Kimi used him and insulted him on private social media. Shikimi's habit of using people had caught up with her. Now she was alone. Even then, she didn't regret anything. She believed Okaya would eventually kill Maria and reunite her with Nagari. Without another word, Maria cut the rope. Shikimi fell into the hole. When she landed, she discovered the ground was coated in honey. The insects swarmed her, drawn to the sweet scent, and began devouring her alive. Only then did she begin to cry and beg for forgiveness. But it was already far too late. After some days, Kinugawa and Okaya were interrogating a gangster who used to be in Shikimi's gangster team. While crying, Kinugawa asked him where Shikimi was, but the guy didn't know where she was. In the end, even after beating the guy severely, they didn't get any answer. Then, Okaya revealed his thoughts about the situation. Okaya concludes that Shikimi didn't know where Kawase went, and he most likely didn't have any connection with Shikimi's gangster team, meaning questioning those gangsters will get them nothing. So Okaya assumes that the one who killed Shikimi and Kawase is most likely Nagari's parents. Now Ajima, who used to be with Shikimi, is a concern left for Maria. At the day when she eliminated Shikimi, she kidnapped Ajima and questioned him, meaning if Ajima got caught by police, he will most likely call out Maria's name, which will cause problems for Maria. On the day when she kidnapped him, she didn't kill him because he wasn't her target. But now, after a week, she has realized that even if she doesn't kill him, she has to remove every point of concern. Since the day Maria has killed Shikimi, Ajima has not gone home. There's also a chance that he might run away due to the fact that Shikimi might expose his crimes. Regardless, before the police find him, Maria has to find Ajima before them. Maria knows that Ajima always conducts his trades in the club every week, so she went to a club to find him. But while she was looking for him, Kinugawa spotted her and asked her what she was doing in a club. She answered that clubs are meant for adults so she can come here. But Kinugawa is still suspicious because he thinks that Maria isn't the type of woman to come to a club. Suddenly, he remembers that when Shaim's gym clothes appeared in his bag, and after that, she stopped coming to school. The last person that went after her was Maria. Hearing that, Maria realized that if she gave a straight answer to him, she'd most likely get caught. So she started crying in front of Kinugawa, saying that she already knew that it was her fault. Maria said that when Shikimi started accusing everything during that gym clothes incident, she went to her and told her that if she kept on accusing everyone, she would become very miserable. While crying, she said to Kinugawa that if she had chosen different words at that time, sure, Shikimi would have been fine. Seeing her crying, Kinugawa didn't ask further questions and said to her that he already knew she hadn't done anything wrong. When Kinugawa was about to leave, Maria stopped him and asked if he had any hint about where Shikimi would have gone. Kinugawa answered that it's none of her business, but she started shouting, saying that she's Shikimi's teacher, so she has to do anything she can to find her. Right then, Kinugawa spotted Ajima and immediately jumped him, but it turns out that the guy just had a hairstyle that was like Ajima's. Still, Kinugawa didn't stop and was about to hit the guy, asking him why he has such a misleading hairstyle. Before he could hit him, Maria grabbed his hand, telling that violence is bad, but Kinugawa was so strong that he easily broke free from Maria's grip and hit the ground. While crying, Kinugawa finally answered Maria's question, saying that Kawase and Shikimi are already dead, and now he's trying to find the one who killed them so he could punish them. Kinugawa is the kind of guy who would go to any lengths for his friends, even if it means resorting to violence to make their wishes come true. Now that both of his friends are dead, he's filled with rage. He won't hesitate to take down anyone who crosses his path. After he attacked a guy, a guard showed up and told him to come with him. Kinugawa ignored the guard and beat him up instead. Just then, a police officer arrived, prompting Kinugawa to flee. This officer was Taiichiro, Maria's ex-husband. Upon seeing him, Maria quickly left the club. It turns out the police had already located Ajima. When Maria got home and turned on the TV, she was shocked to see the news reporting that a man's body had been found on K Mountain. To her horror, she realized it was Ajima's body. Following the investigation, it was determined that Ajima had been murdered a week earlier. The police also discovered that the last sighting of Ajima was when he left a building in Town. Consequently, they decided to investigate that location further. Meanwhile, Maria couldn't stop thinking about how Ajima had died. A week ago, when Shikimi had the chance to message Ajima, he was alive and even replied to her. Based on Kinugawa's reaction at the club, she also ruled her out as the killer. Ajima had his own enemies, but the timing of his death seemed too coincidental to ignore. As she considered her interactions with Ajima and her group while being mindful of the camera placements, she realized there was a possibility that the person who killed Ajima was present at the scene. She wondered if the culprit knew her. Meanwhile, Kinugawa was seething with anger over Ajima's death, feeling it happened without his consent. While Kinugawa was consumed by his emotions, Okaya and Ajiki were carefully analyzing everything to determine if the cases of Shikimi and Kawase were connected to Ajima's murder. Okaya speculated that Ajima wasn't killed by the same person who murdered Shikimi and Kawase, as Ajima's body was found by the police too easily, suggesting an amateurish job by the killer. On the other hand, in the situation with Shikimi and Kawase, the culprit left no traces behind, indicating that someone else has entered the scene. Meanwhile, Maria is contemplating that if Ajima was killed out of a personal vendetta, it wouldn't pose a problem for her. However, the timing seems too coincidental for that. She suspects that this incident is linked to her quest for revenge. Maria believes that the culprit is aware of her connection with Ajima and, for some reason, chose to commit a crime to keep their relationship hidden. If this is indeed the case, there's a chance the culprit might try to reach out to her. Just then, Yajima walked into the room and asked Maria if she had some time to chat. When Maria prompted her to share what was on her mind, Yajima revealed that she was present when Kawase went missing. Upon hearing this, Maria started to wonder if Yajima had seen her. If Yajima had spotted her, it could mean she knows about everything Maria has done so far. Yajima mentioned that she was being tormented by Kawase at the time he vanished. She admitted to being too frightened to become a suspect in the eyes of the police, which is why she kept it to herself. Ultimately, it turns out that Yajima didn't witness Maria committing any wrongdoing. To reassure Yajima, Maria embraced her and promised that her secret would remain safe. Afterward, Maria visited a shop and asked the boy to tell her about Ajima's incident. This boy, Yuta, had been in the same class as Nagari and had also faced bullying from the same group that targeted Nagari. While they were in the car, Yuta pressed Maria to explain how she recognized him. She revealed that she had learned about him from the notes left by Nagari. She discovered that Yuta was on the verge of dropping out of school, but she had seen him in his school uniform following her through the security cameras. Moreover, it seemed that the only one who would gain from Ajima's murder was Maria. The only reason the culprit would help her is that they are also a victim. This was the reason that led Maria to Yuta. After confirming that Yuta was the one who killed Ajima, she asked him why he chose to help her. He admitted that he had always run away from his problems. Yuta regretted leaving Nagari to suffer alone at school while he escaped. After Nagari's death, he couldn't bear to see the person who killed Nagari living a happy life. That was when he decided to take action against them. Yuta's first target was Kawase. He wanted to destroy his eyes and cut his throat. He aimed to take away his ability to scream and slice open his stomach, even wanting to pull out his intestines and stuff them into his mouth. But he was too frightened to go through with it. When he lost all hope, Maria appeared in front of him. Yuta followed her and witnessed her killing Kawase. Although he wanted to help her, she executed her plan so flawlessly that he couldn't intervene. One day, he saw Maria with Ajima. He realized that Ajima was connected to Shikimi, and to eliminate all evidence, Maria needed to kill him. But he was shocked when she let him live, so he thought he should take matters into his own hands to assist Maria. Ultimately, he killed Ajima and buried him by the roadside. After revealing everything, Yuta asked Maria to use him for her revenge however she saw fit. But then, Maria unexpectedly pulled out her phone and showed him that she had recorded everything he said. She told him she had all the evidence needed to make him the prime suspect for all the crimes she had committed so far. She then ordered him to get out of her car. After he left, she drove away, reflecting that if she had killed Ajima in the hotel that day, Yuta wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. She didn't want the guy Nagari saved to end up committing crimes and going to jail. That night, Kinugawa was sneaking into Nagari's house to search for evidence because Okaya mentioned that Nagari's parents were the main suspects. That's why Kinugawa is on a mission to gather evidence. While he was searching the house, Yuta stood outside, ready to record everything. He wanted to prove his worth to Maria and help her in her revenge. However, before he could start, Taiichiro showed up outside the house. When Yuta saw Taiichiro entering, he realized that if Kinugawa got caught, their revenge plan would be ruined. To alert Kinugawa about the approaching danger, he dropped a stone inside the house. Without wasting any time, Kinugawa quickly hid on the balcony. Taiichiro, noticing the broken window, assumed that a mischievous kid had thrown a stone and left the room. Kinugawa thought he was safe and decided to re-enter the room to continue his search. But just as he stepped back inside, Taiichiro returned, suspicious of the situation. Kinugawa didn't hesitate and attempted to knock Taiichiro out and escape. However, Taiichiro was surprisingly strong and easily overpowered him. In a desperate move, Kinugawa grabbed a family picture and smashed it, which infuriated Taiichiro. Before Taiichiro could react, Kinugawa hurled the picture at him and unleashed a flurry of punches to his face. Even after taking a beating, Taiichiro focused on protecting the picture of his family rather than himself. After that, Kinugawa fled the scene to save himself. As he left, he looked around to see who had thrown the rock that had helped him and spotted Yuta trying to escape. Yuta attempted to run, but Kinugawa caught him. Just as Kinugawa was about to take action, Maria crashed a car into him, sending him flying. In the next moment, Kinugawa found himself tied up with target points marked all over his body. Maria then appeared, holding a crossbow, and declared, "It's time for the hunt." Even though he was bound, Kinugawa managed to get up and tried to kick her, but she dodged effortlessly. As he prepared to attack again, Kinugawa realized that one of his legs was seriously injured, leaving him sitting on the ground. Kinugawa confronted her about why she had killed his friends. In response, she showed him a video where he was bullying Nagari. As he watched the footage and recalled Okaya mentioning that the culprits were likely Nagari's parents, Kinugawa finally understood that Maria was Nagari's mother. He dismissed Maria's justification for killing his friends as foolish. He said that Nagari was stupid and kept getting in their way. That's why they just taught him a little lesson. Kinugawa is getting angry just because Nagari died without their permission, and now his mother was causing them more trouble. To silence him, Maria shot an arrow into his mouth. She then explained the rules of the game they were about to play. The rules were straightforward. If Kinugawa could survive until the fireworks ended, he would win. Many people were setting off fireworks that day since it was a festival. Kinugawa quickly dashed into the forest, planning to pretend to escape and catch Maria when she came after him. Despite having an injured leg and an arrow lodged in his mouth, he still managed to smile. Maria, however, was already aware of his intentions and decided to let him play along because she wanted to ensure he didn't have an easy death. While running, Kinugawa bit down on the arrow, breaking it, and then used his tongue to pull it out since his hands were tied. With the broken arrow piece, he managed to free himself. A little while later, Maria arrived in search of Kinugawa, only to find him hiding in a tree waiting for her. As soon as he spotted her, he leaped down to attack, but Maria anticipated his move and shot him with an arrow that pierced his ear, pinning him to the tree. Even though it was the perfect opportunity for her to finish him off, she decided to give him another chance and urged him to think this time. Kinugawa seized the opportunity and tore his ear in two to free himself before making a run for it. Even after everything, he didn't show any signs of fear or pain. After running for a while, he stumbled upon a building. This was the same place where he used to torment Nagari. Meanwhile, Okaya and Ajiki were enjoying the festival. It had been 30 minutes since Okaya texted Kinugawa, but there was still no reply. So Okaya figured that Kinugawa must have been caught. Somehow, Okaya was sure that Kinugawa wasn't caught by the police. It turns out that Okaya had put GPS trackers on all his friends' phones, so he knew exactly where Kinugawa was. Without wasting any time, Okaya and Ajiki left the festival to rescue Kinugawa. While they were in the car, Ajiki asked Okaya if he really considered them friends. When Okaya said yes, Ajiki pressed him for his definition of friendship. Okaya replied that friends are allies, those who support each other in tough times. That's why having more friends is better. Hearing this, Ajiki questioned why Okaya seemed to enjoy the situation and watching his friends suffer. Okaya, with a worried expression, insisted that he wasn't enjoying seeing his friend die. Ajiki sensed that Okaya was actually enjoying it, even if he didn't realize it himself. So he asked why Okaya got angry whenever his friends mentioned Nagari. He inquired about Okaya's feelings towards Nagari. Okaya explained that he viewed Nagari as an enemy because despite the bullying, Nagari never backed down. This was why he found pleasure in tormenting Nagari the most. After saying that, he urged Ajiki to focus on finding Kinugawa. Okaya believed Kinugawa was still alive because whoever had captured him would first bully him before killing him painfully. Since Kinugawa was really strong, there was a chance they could save him. Meanwhile, Kinugawa had entered the building, and as he looked around, he recalled the times he used to play with Nagari here. In this place, Kinugawa used to play hide-and-seek with Nagari. If Nagari got caught within 30 minutes, he would face punishment. Now, when Kinugawa entered a room where Nagari used to hide, it exploded. Kinugawa was caught in the fire and suffered serious injuries. At that moment, Maria arrived and asked the injured Kinugawa if he had already died. Despite his injuries, Kinugawa, being really strong, tried to ignore the pain and escape. But before he could get away, Maria shot him in the shoulder. Noticing how Kinugawa was enduring the pain, she questioned if he was some kind of monster. Then, she led an angry Kinugawa to another room. When they reached the room, Maria opened the door, and arrows flew out, hitting Kinugawa in various places. However, these weren't arrows. They were small, spiky rods connected by wires. Before he could remove them, Maria activated the electricity, shocking Kinugawa throughout his body. He thought he could survive by pulling out the sticky rods. With all his strength, he yanked them out, even pulling out his own eye in the process. Now severely injured and unable to move, he began to feel fear as he realized that what was happening to him mirrored what he had done to Nagari. At that point, Maria brought out a chainsaw, ready to end Kinugawa's life. When Kinugawa was a child, He was bullied by his teacher. One day, after being bullied, Okaya stopped him on his way home and asked if he wanted revenge. Okaya told him to come to the counseling room after class the next day if he wanted to get back at the teacher. The following day, when Kinugawa arrived, he saw his bully teacher bowing before Okaya. From that moment on, with Okaya's help, Kinugawa began to bully the teacher. One day, Okaya asked the teacher to send him a naked picture of his daughter. If he doesn't send it, Okaya will report the teacher to the authorities for bullying Kinugawa, which would ruin his life. The teacher began to cry, pleading with Okaya not to involve his daughter in this situation. The following day, Kinugawa was stunned to find out that the teacher had taken his own life. When he questioned Okaya about why he went to such extremes, Okaya replied that he did it simply to become friends with Kinugawa. Upon hearing this, Kinugawa let go of everything and chose to be friends with Okaya. In the present, as Maria slowly cuts his fingers and limbs, Kinugawa thinks that Maria is a lot like Okaya. One by one, Maria chased after Kinugawa, slicing his fingers off one at a time. Gradually, she also cut away pieces of Kinugawa's flesh. Kinugawa began to cry, admitting defeat. He begged Maria to stop, promising to do anything if she would just let him live. In response to his pleas, Maria reminded him that Nagari used to ask them to stop bullying in the same way, but they never listened. After a brutal cutting session, Kinugawa was barely alive, covered in cuts. Before finishing him off, Maria asked him how they could find enjoyment in tormenting someone. She mentioned that she tried to mimic them while killing, but she never felt any pleasure in killing or torturing anyone. Meanwhile, Ajiki and Okaya finally arrived, but Maria had already completed her task. She then went to her car where Yuta was waiting. When Yuta apologized for causing her trouble, she revealed that she had planned to kill Kinugawa after the summer holidays. However, due to Yuta, she had to change her plans. As Maria tossed Kinugawa's phone into the mud, she figured that Okaya was probably out there searching through the mud for Kinugawa's phone. Just then, Yuta received a call from his mom. He answered, and she told him to come home because Okaya was there. Upon hearing that Okaya had gone to his house, Yuta felt a wave of fear and quickly muted the call, wondering why Okaya would visit him. As Okaya was heading to Kinugawa using the GPS, he overheard some people talking about how Taichiro, a detective, got robbed earlier that day. Curious, Okaya asked Ajiki if they were still going to Yuta's house. Ajiki wondered why he wasn't focused on Kinugawa. Okaya explained that there was something more pressing at hand. He mentioned that since the father isn't currently in the picture, there's a strong possibility that the kidnapper is the mother. However, since the police haven't found any evidence linking her to the crimes, blindly following the GPS could lead them right into a trap set by Nagari's mother. Therefore, while the culprit is toying with her victim, Okaya believes it would be wise to explore the idea of a possible accomplice. Ajiki then asked if the person who killed Ajima could be this accomplice, and if Okaya had any suspects in mind. Okaya replied that when Kawase and Shikimi went missing, the likelihood of the culprit being someone connected to Nagari increased significantly. If he were to consider a third person in this scenario, the only one that comes to mind is Yuta. Even though Okaya doubts that timid Yuta would be capable of murder, he still wants to investigate whether Yuta has any connection to the incident so far. They can always return to tracking Kinugawa later. If Yuta is innocent, that's fine, but if he is guilty, it could greatly assist them in locating Nagari's missing mother. Meanwhile, Yuta hasn't picked up his phone, and he's extremely worried about his mom. He asked Maria for help, but she told him she wasn't a miracle worker. The same goes for Okaya. Ultimately, Maria decided to teach him how to fight so he could protect his mother on his own. Maria told Yuta that Okaya is only suspecting him to be the culprit. If he had conclusive evidence, he would have ambushed him instead. The point of contention here isn't the fact that Yuta's mother is now a hostage, but rather that she stays as the unknowing party. Hence, if Yuta wants to keep his mother safe, he has to prevent Okaya from finding out that he's the culprit. She asked Yuta to tell his mother, who's now in enemy territory, to persuade Okaya to return home. With that, Yuta finally unmutes the call. First, he said sorry to his mother for being mute for so long. His mother asked him if he's all right. He said to her mother that he's been keeping a secret from her, and that secret is that he's challenging himself to travel all around Japan. Hearing that, his mother asked him about what he's going to do about lodging and other things. She reminds him that he's still a minor. So Yuta answered that his online friends are letting him stay over at their house when he comes by. To get the truth if Yuta is guilty or not, Okaya asked him to send a photo of him being with his friends. His mother asked him what kind of friends they are. Yuta answered that his friends are the people who had been bullied in the past. Some of them have a fear of cameras due to being victims of voyeurism. Others have had their personal information leaked on the internet, which caused them to abandon their real name. In the worst cases, some of them develop a phobia for other humans. These people who don't even know their real name. Yuta told her mom that these people are letting him live with them. That's why he doesn't want to hand out their personal information or photo. Yuta told her that he will contact her daily to assure her that he's fine. Seeing how Yuta is talking, Maria saw her own son in him. Hearing the story that Yuta made up, his mom started crying and asked Yuta to say thanks to his friends who helped him move forward in life. Now Okaya can't do anything. He left the home respectfully, saying that he's glad Yuta is fine. While moving toward the car, Ajiki asked Okaya if what they did just now was okay. Okaya answered with yes and explained that if they were to tread any further, they might expose their deeds to Yuta's mother and it would be deemed necessary to suppress her. If Yuta was guilty, the culprit would just have to cut him off in case, and Ajiki would be the ones in danger instead. Ajiki asked him if this means he lost to them. Okaya answered that he did lose in the manipulation of why Yuta used his mother. Their victory condition was to figure out the mastermind behind Yuta's action. Hence, it did not matter whether he had to concede as long as he's able to obtain the necessary information. The profiling of the mastermind. Remembering what Yuta told his mother, Okaya said that there were other words Yuta could have chosen to get past the crisis. He guesses the choice of words is hereditary. In the end, Ajiki guesses if the culprit is Nagari's mother. Okaya answered with yes. Ajiki asked him if he had a way to locate her. Okaya didn't answer the question and said that there's someone he'd like to meet when the summer break is over. On the other hand, Maria was driving the car while Yuta was lying in the back seat. He was thinking that thanks to Sensei, who is Maria, he was able to protect his mom. But the trip around Japan was a complete lie. Hence, he'll probably be killed after this and be deemed as missing. He thought that this is an obvious conclusion. If only he didn't exist in this world. He thought that if only he was able to withstand bullying. Maria's family wouldn't have to suffer this much. That's why he decided to stop crying. The role he played today was a future that Nagari could have had. After a while, they reached the destination and Maria asked Yuta to get out of the car. This place is Maria's home. She told Yuta that he has to stay with her until everything is over. After getting fresh, Maria prepared dinner for Yuta. He said thanks and started eating food, thinking that the only way he can be useful is to not do anything on his own anymore. Maria also told him that he's just a hindrance to her right now. However, she understands his feeling of waiting to be helpful. Hence, she decided to set a few conditions. Saying that, she shows him a computer and tells him that she wants him to be a hacker. She explains that his first objective will be to clear a legal hacking simulation game. Henceforth, she'll have him take the Information Security Management Examination, the CCNA, Registered Information Security Specialist Examination, the SICH. Once he'll receive these 4 certifications, she'll make him her accomplice. She told him that this will take a whole year and asked him to take his time with it. Before leaving, she told him that the reference books he needs and his bed will be in this room. Before she left, Yuta asked her why she's giving him a chance. Maria answered that because she believed in him. After leaving Yuta's room, Maria went to take a shower. While doing that, she thought that this way she'll go just as she had planned. She thought that Yuta's self-esteem had been destroyed due to his bullying experience. Even if she were to keep him in captivity, there are still risks of him running amok again. Hence, she gave him a goal of getting his certifications as a means to control his further actions. She thought that the way Yuta is clumsy and yet earnest at heart is a little similar to Nagari. She wonders if she were to tell the truth to Taichiro that Nagari's death wasn't an accident. Could he have protected him from Kinugawa? She thought that if that's the case, they could have been in this together. But Maria didn't want her ex-husband to work with her because what she's doing is really dangerous. If Taichiro also dies, who would protect Nagari's grave? She thought that the one who will shoulder the sins should only fall on her, the one who no longer has anything to lose. On the other hand, Taichiro has woken up in the hospital. When he woke up, there's a guy who was holding flowers for him. This guy is Inspector Reiji. Reiji said that he brought the flowers to mourn his colleague that died in the line of duty. But apparently that colleague crawled back to life like a stubborn man. Hearing that, Taichiro stops him from joking further and says that they should get to the point. He reports that the culprit that assaulted him was Kinugawa from Saint Academy's second-year Class C. He's the childhood friend of the missing Shikimi. During the time of the crime, Kinugawa was recording the situation on his smartphone. They can assume that he planned to relay the information to another party after the incident. However, Taiichiro doesn't have any connections to Kinugawa prior to this point. Hearing the whole report, Reiji said thanks to him because this was a lot easier compared to questioning the general public. After hearing his thanks, Taiichiro can't believe that Reiji is being so cooperative. Reiji told him that he's kind to people who know where they stand. Taiichiro asked him if he wanted Reiji to answer some of his concerns. Reiji decided to cooperate. He asked him about the his and run case during his son's suicide attempt 2 years ago. He told Reiji that he was removed from the investigation to his home until he was cleared of abuse allegations. Later on, he was only given a summary of the aftermath. Reiji was the detective in charge of that case. Even now, Taiichiro can't deny that he had nothing to do with his son's suicide attempt. However, even though he doesn't have anything in common with Kinugawa, it's a completely different story if they are talking about Kiritaka and Kinugawa. Saying that, Taiichiro asked him if he's hiding something from him. Hearing that question and everything, Reiji angrily plucked out some flowers and asked Taiichiro if he's suggesting that his son was driven to his death by Kinugawa's gang and the police are covering it up for them. He asked him what the police would gain from covering up the mess of some students. Asking that, Reiji went to meet someone. He said to that person that none of the surveillance cameras in the area captured anyone with any resemblance to the individual known as Kinugawa. However, due to this incident, Taiichiro has raised his suspicions and there's a possibility that he might seek out the truth in the future. He asked the person how they should proceed with this matter. The person to whom he's reporting the matter is Chief Inspector. She asked Reiji to not worry. He said that she traced the location of Kinugawa's smartphone. They can send their men to collect it right away. Hearing that, Reiji said thank you and was about to speak further, but the Chief Inspector stopped him. She told him that the reason for peace in Japan is due to the fact that the citizens fear the police. They wouldn't even think about fighting against the police. If the police were to become an item of ridicule, peace would no longer be a matter of fact. And yet to think the police were being toyed with by some middle school delinquents. She reminds Rei that this is a face that must never be made public by any means, saying that she said to Rai that he resolved to take up the dirty work in the name of peace, and for that she would like to reward his resolution. She asked him if her expectations are a burden to him. Reiji answered with no, and said that he'll live up to her expectations. This was all just a script. Okaya was sitting inside his car saying to the Chief Inspector that he's so proud of her for following the script. This Chief Inspector is his mother named Shizuka. At a luxurious house, Okaya was sitting and talking. Mother, you came from a wealthy background and are also the police chief inspector. Father, you're the psychiatrist for the police force. At this time, Okaya is sitting on his sofa while his mother and father are on the ground like slaves. Okaya said to his parents that for their son's sake, the both of them willingly become his accomplices. He said that he's always grateful to both of them. Saying that, he asked his father, who while kneeling on the ground, about what they should do for the class presentation for the cultural festival this year. Father was really scared and asked what about a haunted house? Hearing the suggestion, Okaya started beating the father and asked him if doesn't think it's a little rude to treat his lovely son like a monster. Then he moves on to the mother who was in the same condition as the father. She suggests cafes. Okaya didn't like the suggestion, saying that it's worse to imitate a servant and started piercing Shizuka's chest with a sharp stick. Even while the blood was coming out, Shizuka's expression didn't change. Shizuka apologizes and reminds Okaya that during the St. Springs Cultural Festival, there would be parental guardians that come from large corporations. Therefore, the opportunity to be able to get in direct contact with them would certainly benefit Okaya's cause in the future. Hearing that, Okaya stopped poking her chest and said that she had a valid point. Okaya said sorry to his mother for stabbing her. Shizuka asked him to not worry, saying that it was her fault for omitting her words in the first place. Then Okaya threw some grapes on the ground, saying to Shizuka that she can eat it. With that, Okaya left his parents alone.